Hello everyone, this is for class 7. The topic is history. We were doing the Delhi Sultanate and we were discussing about chroniclers and history writers and how their worldview is that uh, a woman will not rule the kingdom because that would upset the natural order which was chosen by God, and that they advised the Sultan to follow the natural order. Well, one sultan defied this rule of the chroniclers, and he set an example in the 12th century itself, which would be spoken of even today as a far-sightedness. In 1236, Sultan Iltutmish, the second sultan of the Mamluk dynasty, he appointed Razia, his daughter, as the sultan. As long as autocracy was in India, Razia remained the only female monarch to have ruled Delhi. So imagine the farsightedness of Iltutmish when he found out that none of his sons were as capable as Razia. So he nominated his daughter instead, who was far more capable than her brothers. The chronicler of the age, Minhaji Siraj was a contemporary history writer. He recognized that Razia was more able and qualified than all of her brothers. But Minhaji Siraj was not comfortable at having a queen as a ruler, at having a woman as a ruler. Siraj thought that the queen's rule went against the ideal social order created by God, in which women were supposed to be lower in status than men. The nobles were not happy either. The courtiers, the nobles, all of them conspired behind Razia's back, and she was ultimately removed from the throne in 1240. So Razia ruled for only 4 years, basically from 1236 to 1240. But in those 4 years, she proved that she was capable as any other male sultan. She rode horses, she wore men's clothes, she was swift in hunting, she knew what she wanted to do, she knew what was good for the people. So the courtiers and the nobles were jealous, and they conspired and they removed her. Now we come to the consolidation part of the Delhi Sultanate. How was Delhi Sultanate consolidated? In the 13th century, the sultans living in the fortified towns and fortified cities inside the fort, his influence did not actually cover the interiors of the city or the interiors of the empire. The control of Delhi sultans rarely went beyond heavily fortified towns occupied by garrisons. The sultans seldom controlled the hinterland of the cities and were therefore dependent upon three things: trade with traders, tribute from other kings who had accepted the sultan as their overlord, and plunder. Plunder is when occupying a new kingdom, fighting and defeating its ruler, the sultan would carry on large amounts of wealth from that new kingdom to the capital in Delhi. So that is plunder. So for supplies, the sultan would rely on these three things: trade, tribute, and plunder. Controlling garrison towns in distant provinces of Bengal or Sindh from Delhi was extremely difficult. So the sultans sitting in Delhi would naturally have difficulty in controlling the cities in far off provinces like Sindh in the west or Bengal in the east. The distance mattered. Rebellion, war, or even bad weather could snap the fragile communication routes. Delhi's authority was also challenged by Mongol invasions from Afghanistan, Mongol invasions led by the Mongol leader Genghis Khan, and by the governors who rebelled at any sign of Sultan's weakness. So, if any of the governors saw the Sultan's weakness or the Sultan was busy with something else, he would not leave the chance to not rebel. He would rebel against the Sultan. If he wins, he wins. If he loses, he loses. But rebellion was very much an option to the governors. The Sultan barely survived these challenges. Its consolidation occurred during the reign of Ghiyasuddin Balban. Ghiyasuddin Balban was a sultan of the slave dynasty, the Mamluk dynasty. And further expansion of the Sultanate was done under Alauddin Khilji, not Ranveer Singh, the actual original Alauddin Khilji. The first set of campaigns along the internal frontiers of the sultans aimed at consolidating the hinterlands of the garrison towns. So, the first set of campaigns were for consolidating the interiors of the towns, the interiors of the fortress towns, which was beyond the control of the sultans. During these campaigns, forests were cleared in the Ganga Yamuna area, and hunter-gatherers and pastoralists expelled from their habitats. So, forest was cleared during these raids, and the forest people, the hunter-gatherers and the pastoralists, they were driven out, and these lands were given to farmers and agriculturists, and farming and agriculture was encouraged. New fortresses, new garrison towns were established to protect the trade routes and to promote regional trade. The second expansion occurred along the external frontier. Military expeditions into South India. So the Delhi Sultanate was based in North India. So military expeditions into South India started during the Khilji rule and culminated with Muhammad bin Tughlaq. In their campaigns, the Sultan's armies captured elephants, horses, slaves, and carried away precious metals and huge amounts of wealth. By the end of Muhammad bin Tughlaq's rule, 150 years after the somewhat humble beginnings of the Delhi Sultanate, the armies of the Sultan had marched across a large part of the subcontinent. So, 150 years after it was founded, after the Delhi Sultanate was founded, the armies had marched across a large part of the subcontinent. They had defeated rival armies, they had seized cities, the Sultanate collected taxes from the farmers and dispensed justice in the empire. So the Sultan collected taxes from the farmers and he dispensed justice to whoever needs it. So it was a just society as mentioned by the chroniclers of that age, the history writers of that age, as advised to the sultans that the society should be based on justice. We will continue with this chapter in the next video. Till then, bye.